Good Doctors of Abby Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I'm Dr. Kristen.
Welcome to our continuing coverage of Glow. We're almost caught up with all the Glow that is available to watch. We are moving on to season 3, and today we're talking about episodes 1 through 5. And a lot happened to the girls in Las Vegas.
So much.
Lots of plot developments, but as you know or don't know if you're just joining us, we are not talking about specific plot developments as much as kind of larger narrative arcs, storylines, and bigger picture issues that are being dealt with on this show. So the couple ones we want to talk about today are the multiple varied conversations about motherhood and the choice to be a mother that happen on this show, particularly the idea of a working mom and wanting to pursue a career versus motherhood. And also some really wonderful scenes about the importance of being seen and validated for who you are, even if that is something or someone who is technically othered in normal cultural society. So we'll get into that.
Potentially a human wolf.
Yes, I mean, like Sheila dresses like a human wolf, so she's always othered wherever she goes. But she finds some love and some visibility in this couple of episodes, which is great. And then also we want to talk a little bit about our beloved friend Bash, who has taken a turn for the worse and has now decided he is going to make decisions for everybody. And so we'll delve into some of our leadership philosophy to discuss what the double hockey sticks is going on with Sebastian Howard.
We think Sebastian Howard is probably overcompensating for a feeling of out of control of his own sexual preferences.
Yes.
So it feels that way.
And that is projecting into destroying everybody else.
It's so charming.
Let's talk about motherhood, which happens in several ways for these first couple of episodes.
One of the things I particularly love about this show is its way of explaining and exploring all the different ways of being a woman.
Yes.
In professional and personal life. We are very concerned at Abby Research, both professionally and then personally as humans and people who love other humans, about these struggles that everyone goes through. In this chunk of, we've already been dealing with Debbie's guilt over leaving her son, and that's been done very, very well.
Yeah.
We've talked about her conversations about her body ownership. We've been looking at Tamay and how Tamay's relationship with motherhood. We enter into Cherry's now, which we discover, I think we were hinting at it last season, that she and Keith had agreed that starting a family, which just, I mean, a little from me, they're already a family, but that's okay.
Adding children to that family. Yes.
It's a little pet peeve of mine.
Yes. And we learned in the earlier seasons that Cherry has had a miscarriage in the past, and they were taking some time for her to recover from that emotionally. But it appears to be, even in the earlier hints, that Keith is the one that's kind of pushing for...
because he thinks they're still on the same page.
Yes.
Not because he's being in any way manipulative. He is convinced they are on the same page. And what happens in these 5 episodes is that he finds out that they are not.
And also, really, really importantly, that Cherry finds out that she is not. Yeah. Which is a beautiful conversation done with her and Debbie, and talking about what it means to have a child. She gets some outside perspective from one of the showgirls at the casino about what having a child, how having a child impacted her career. And she starts to have these thoughts, and she really comes to her own realization that, wait a second, my thoughts on this have changed. And, 4 years ago, before I had my miscarriage, I really did want to have a child and grow our family. But maybe now I don't want to. And also what I really loved is that they gave Keith some space to also be a human in this. I think in the national conversation about women and wanting to have children or not wanting to have children, we do forget the male partner in this. Keith has valid emotions and has always wanted a child, and clearly wanted one with Cherry, and thought this was their end game. And so it does not surprise me that he has to take off and emotionally cannot be in Cherry's presence while they are processing this. This is a fundamental redefinition of their marriage. And as somebody who is married, I will tell you that is a fundamental redefinition of your marriage. It is a massive conversation over what your definition of family is. And Cherry tells Debbie, and therefore us, I'm quite happy with Keith. Keith is enough for me. And why am I not enough for Keith? Yeah.
And that is a question I have heard hundreds of times from both men and women, male friends of mine whose wives are pushing them for a baby that they don't particularly want, and women friends of mine whose husbands are pushing them for a baby that they don't particularly want, or partner. Marriage is not always part of it. But what was so fascinating about this show is that it allowed all of those narratives to exist without ever being cleaned up.
Yeah, and one of the things we talk about a lot here at Abby Research is that there can be multiple truths at the same time, and that's what the show does so well, is giving space to, and then not making a decision, not saying like, here are all the perspectives, but really Cherry is right.
Yeah.
No, everybody's right. Everybody's allowed to their feelings and interpretations, and it's really, really complicated and challenging conversation to have, particularly in this show, which is so situated in the 1980s, which we talk about. I mean, this has always been a conversation for women. We're still having it now. It's a little bit different than it was in the 1980s in terms of gendered expectations, but still to this day, women are doing 75% of the unpaid labor, which includes caring for family members and children. And so it's great to see them located within the 80s, in which, we still had a lot more movement to make than we do now. But it's something we can also all identify with as well. That doesn't need to be obviously set in the 2019s.
Yeah. But I'm also really hoping that we get to like the Sweet Home Alabama moment of it, where in that movie they talk about losing a baby and Josh Lucas looks at Reese Witherspoon and goes, it occurred to me that would have been your only adventure. Like, I thought of our baby as a grand adventure, and I've now realized it would have been your only adventure.
Uh-huh.
And I'm hoping that she and Keith have that conversation.
We definitely want to see a reconciliation between Keith and Cherry. So put a pin in that. But we also get the introduction of Gina Davis's character as the head of the casino. And she has some conversations with Debbie, particularly about motherhood and success and what it looks like to balance those ideas of being a woman and wanting a career, and also the pressures of having a family.
And having a body.
Yes.
Like, one of the things I really liked about Gina Davis was pretty much like, if you would like to stop starving yourself, which I would recommend, feel free to move into producing, because that's where the real power is. The power is actually not seated in your body, because Debbie's body is still controlled by everybody else. If she moves into a different power position than she is as Liberty Bell, then she gets to reclaim her body even more than she already has as a wrestler. Our Debbie is still processing that information.
Our Debbie has a lot of issues about the ownership and representation and physical space of her body. She's been dealing with it, she tells us, routinely since she was 14. And we get some we don't get hints, we get told, we get shown that she currently is going through a bulimic episode as well, because of the external and internal pressures that she's put on herself for how she's supposed to look. So one would hope that she can take some lessons from Gina Davis and maybe get to a healthier place. That's a really, really difficult journey that a lot of humans make all the time.
Yeah.
So,
and if she doesn't have health insurance, I don't know how she's going to get the support or help that she needs to potentially see herself in a different way, because it's not something that's very easy to do in and of your own brain.
That is right. So the other thing we really want to talk about is our beloved Sheila.
Gosh.
Sheila the She-Wolf.
Sheila the She-Wolf. So we meet an incredible drag performer who performs largely as Barbra Streisand.
And Liza Minnelli.
But primarily we meet her as Barbara.
Yes.
And there's an incredible interaction about how, as the male human, he did not feel he had a voice. He did not feel he had understood who he was, but as Barbara, he could sing. And I think that's really what the show has been telling us about Sheila all along.
Yes.
Sheila as the human has no identity, has no voice, doesn't know who she is, but Sheila as the wolf is part of a pack and understands who she is.
Yes.
So we get some really fascinating and lovely conversations between the gentleman, both in and out of drag. So both as his drag persona and as his non-drag persona. And Sheila, at which we also get to see a transformation out of a wolf into another version of a voice she can have.
Yes.
I doubt she will ever be a person who can find her voice in and of her own skin.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're being told is that she will always need to find other characters to play. But realistically, we all do that.
Yes.
Some of us who are theatrical find it more easily and more varied and are constantly playing roles. Other people find it more difficult. I don't go around wearing a costume that you all can see, but trust me, there are days that I am wearing one just as thick as that wolf costume just to get through the day.
Yeah.
So this is not an uncommon human experience, and I'm very, in a certain way, this sounds strange, but honored that they're taking the time to tell it.
Yeah, because I think the fact that they're doing it with something so visibly obvious as a wolf costume, hopefully people can still identify with that performance, with that persona that we all put on. And I think they've done a great job of humanizing that and making it accessible, because from the front, it would look like, well, I don't walk around in a wolf costume, so I don't identify with Sheila. But they get down to the bare bones of and I think that's why inserting this drag performer into the narrative has helped flesh that out a little bit more. And it's made for a lot more impactful storylines. But we're big stands of any Sheila storyline they want to tell us.
Any and all. You know who we're not stands of currently?
I was about to say, speaking of one of our stands that has gone downhill.
So our sweet Bash is having a time.
Sweet, lonely, confused Sebastian.
Is having a time.
Yeah.
And as part of having a time, he is destroying everybody else's lives.
He's being very destructive.
He's destructive to the drag performer. He's destructive to Sam. He's destructive to Debbie.
He's destructive to the women and their agency over whether or not they want to be a part of the show. And it's all spiraling from some form of existential crisis relating to the death of
Florian,
of his beloved friend and butler, Florian, and the discovery that Florian was both gay and died of AIDS, which we learned in the previous season. We both feel that even with these chunks of episodes, we're moving towards Bash, the revelation that Bash is struggling with his own sexual identity.
However,
we could be wrong.
There are very easily, if it turns out that what he's really just struggling with is that he needs family, that's not a just, apologies. But if the story is that he is struggling with the fact that he's never belonged to anyone except for Florian, that is absolutely something that could trigger this level of an existential crisis. So I have a feeling that they potentially, when Chris Lowell played some of these scenes, that the creators themselves had not made the decision, because he played it very ambiguously and brilliantly. But still to the point now where I could see this going either way, where it is a found family trauma or it is a sexuality trauma.
And there's
both.
Yeah. And even the really, really impactful scene when the drag performer auditions for Bash.
Yeah.
And the words of the song are very, very personal. And we see Bash kind of sitting in the dark in the room, very emotionally affected by it. And he lashes out and he's mean and he's hurtful and he rejects the drag performer's audition and therefore message that was in but the message was about like accepting and loving yourself and finding your voice, which it could be either of those storylines that we're going with. So we don't know. Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of birdie talk in this conversation too about his mother. Like they weren't, nurturing. They had no relationship. So again, this really can go either way. We are actually, as we record this, going to go home tonight and finish the series. So we're going to have answers for you next week. Maybe. Probably not, because this show is great at drawing things out in an appropriate manner.
And one would hope we get
Game of Thrones.
Yes. Cough, Game of Thrones. We would hope that we get a season 4 because we absolutely adore these characters, even if we don't like them. We love where they're going. Debbie. I love
Billy. I don't give a crap about Billy.
I'm glad he's not in this season.
I'm glad he's gone. Loving Justine.
Love Justine coming in.
Love Sam being a dad. Can Sam be a dad forever?
Sam and Ruth, big ships for Sam and
Ruth. Let's have a hot minute for the hot tub scene.
Oh yeah. And also what we said in our previous video stands in this one, stands up with a D, that Sam's radical honesty
is so refreshing.
I loved that he called it out and he said, you have to know I'm in love with you. Like, we have to make a decision on this because it's really hard for me to be around you when everything is muddled. Like, please can we just make a go of this? I think we'd be great together. Our Ruth on the struggle bus, as always. We'll see what decisions she makes.
But I also love it because the older you get in life, the less games you play.
Yeah.
When I was dating in my 20s, I was like, well, maybe I want to tell him and maybe I don't. And I meet the guy that's like my now husband and we were like a month in and I was like, right, am I your girlfriend or not? Like, I don't do this. You have 2 weeks to decide. I can't do
when
this.
we're younger, we think we're being really obvious with these hints that we're dropping and these
I'm like,
conversations that we're having. And I appreciate that Sam is just like,
hey, I'm in love with you.
Hey, I'm in love with you. Are we going to make a go of this, or are you going to stop being awkward? Because I also have a job to do.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever truly fallen for a television character more than I did in that moment.
Surprisingly.
Oh my God, Mark Maron is crushing this too.
Big fans of Sam. So we'll see what happens. I drew a heart in my notes and then I crossed through it because, heartbreak happened. Potentially, Ruth is lashing out. We don't know where it's going.
We got 5 episodes left, guys. We'll see you next week.
Take care.
Bye.